Thank you so much, Sandra. That was a great story and a great introduction, and thank you very much for sharing it. And thank you to the regional group for sponsoring this event today. And I have a long friendship with the regional group, I'll say. I, of course, have known your dad, Steve, for many years. And it was my honor in November to present your grandfather, Len Peteshin, a great leader in our community, with the Order of Ottawa. That was a great moment for us, and I think a great moment for your family. So thank you for your leadership. And you know, as you were talking about your family business center, I was thinking about how really a city is a little bit like a family business in a lot of ways, where you are, you know, there are people who take a leadership role for a time and then they pass it on to the next generation, and you pass along those values and those objectives, and you hope that the next generation picks up the ball and carries it further. So I think that's the kind of city we have, the kind of community we have, very similar to the kind of family business that Regional Group is. So good morning everyone, bonjour tout le monde. C'est vraiment formidable d'être ici avec vous ce matin. And you know, this is becoming a little bit of an annual tradition, I guess. It's been 3 years now. Sula insisted that I come here, you know, 6 weeks after I was sworn in as mayor a couple of years ago, and I said I would do it in a moment of weakness, and I've been back every year since, and I'll be back again next year. I promise. Every year that I'm mayor, whether I'm Mayor of Canada's capital, or I'm Mayor of the, you know, 51st state, capital of the 51st state, no matter what, I'll still be here, you know, every single year. So, Happy New Year to all of you. You know, when I walked in the room this morning, part of the dynamic I noticed was people were seeing each other for the first time in 2025, and a lot of people were greeting each other and wishing each other Happy New Year. So I want to wish you a Happy New Year, bonne année. Il s'agit d'une année très importante pour notre ville. This is an important year for our city. It's a year in which we are going to be facing a lot of risks and obstacles. But I want to reassure you, I want to tell you this morning that one of our absolute highest priorities this year will be to support the construction of more homes in our city. And I know that's important to you, and I know it's important to you not just as builders, but as residents of Ottawa, as families in Ottawa, as people who care about the next generation in our city. Look, we all want the same thing. Nous voulons construire plus de logements et de le faire plus vite. We all want to build more homes and to build them faster. Nous voulons bâtir une meilleure et plus abordable ville pour nos enfants et pour nos petits-enfants. We want to build a better, more affordable city for our children and our grandchildren. But I think we can all agree that building more homes is very complex. It's not an easy issue to resolve. If it was easy, we would have solved it already. There are so many factors affecting the housing market, and there are so many players, including 3 levels of government. But just because it's challenging, it doesn't mean we should stop trying. And I think this is one of these issues where it's not going to be one solution, and it's not going to be one organization or one level of government that solves it. We are going to have to work together on a range of solutions in order to tackle this challenge. My goal this year is to be as innovative as possible on housing approvals. Mon objectif cette année consiste à innover le plus possible en ce qui concerne les approbations de logement. And I'll be working closely with my colleagues on Ottawa City Council. I want to welcome David Hill, my colleague who's here this morning. Morning, David.
Morning, sir.
David reached out to me, texted me this morning and said, do you think we could take a second to chat when we're at the Goga breakfast this morning? And I said, I don't think we're going to even get near each other because everybody's going to be talking to us. So David, I'll call you later. We can catch up then. You know, it's great to have David here and to have the support of my colleagues on council as we tackle this very important issue. I've spoken over the last couple of years with many members of the development community regularly, and I hear what you're saying. I understand the challenges and the frustrations that you are facing in trying to do your jobs, and we at City Hall want to do everything we can to fix that. And I would underscore that we have done some things already. I think we've done a lot. The team at City Hall has been working hard to streamline the process. We've added more resources in the planning department to respond to applications. We've introduced a team approach so that applications are less likely to be slowed down when someone's away or somebody's unavailable. We are revamping our pre-consultation process, and that's already reduced application timelines by more than 2 months. So we're doing lots of things, we're trying our hardest, but we can always do more. And that's the message that I want to deliver this morning. We want to do more, we can do more. And I want you to look back on 2025 as a year when we made a lot of progress, and when we made a lot of progress by working together. We want to take bold steps, innovative steps, to shorten and improve the approval process. We want to work as closely as possible with you. Nous voulons collaborer très étroitement avec vous. Now, I want to start by providing a little bit of context about where we are right now. Let's talk about the world in 2025. Obviously, we live in some pretty interesting times. I joked about Canada becoming the 51st state, but if we are about to see a new administration in Washington that is threatening tariffs and other measures that could have a huge impact on the Canadian economy. And closer to home, as you all know, we're likely to have a federal election in the next couple of months, perhaps even a provincial election as well. And there are decisions that are being made at both those levels of government that have a huge impact on our city, on Ottawa. So for example, if the new president introduces tariffs, how's that going to impact interest rates and the overall economy in Canada, including in Ottawa? Will the next Prime Minister of Canada make changes to the federal public service? Le prochain Premier ministre du Canada apportera-t-il des changements à la fonction publique fédérale? Will the prospect of a federal election and all of the uncertainty around that cause the largest group of employees that we have in our city, federal public servants, to have uncertainty about the future so that they won't make major purchasing decisions? Let's face it, people buy homes when they're excited and optimistic and confident about the future. Uncertainty, as you know, uncertainty is bad for business. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the political climate right now. There are also many other market conditions like supply chain issues, challenges in hiring skilled labor, and rising costs of construction materials. I don't have to tell you about all of those challenges. You face them all the time. The reason I point all of this out is to underline that none of that is within your control, nor is it within my control or the control of City Council or the control of your municipal government. We're going to have to watch carefully and see what happens with all of those challenges and pressures over the next 12 months. I hope that the market conditions improve and that leads to the right conditions for more homes being built in our city. But I don't have total control over that, and neither do you. There are a lot of things we can't control, but what we need to do is work very hard on the things that we can control. And that's our job at the City of Ottawa. La seule chose que nous puissions faire, c'est de travailler sur ce que nous contrôlons. At the City of Ottawa, we need to be laser focused on improving and shortening the approval process. Notre travail consiste non pas à construire des maisons, mais à les approuver. We're not, as you know, in the business of building homes, we're in the business of approving homes. We've done a lot to improve in that area already, and again, I'm determined to do more. I can't commit to you that the economy is going to be strong in 2025. I can't commit to you that interest rates are going to come down. I can't commit that the next federal election is going to bring stability to Ottawa. But what I can say is that I will do everything in my power that if you sell a new home, we'll get you the building permit as quickly as possible. And before going any further, I want to address another issue honestly and candidly. Jason and I were speaking about this just before we got started this morning. I know everyone would love to see development charges frozen or even lowered. It would be great, again, if that were easy to do. If it were easy to do, we would have done it already. But let's be honest about that, it's very challenging. And you know, at the time when my parents were buying their first home in Ottawa, on Main Street, there weren't development charges. The federal and provincial governments provided municipalities with the money they needed to build infrastructure, and there wasn't a development charge attached to every new home. But somewhere along the way, the other levels of government stopped providing those resources to municipalities. They no longer gave us the same level of investment for things like water and sewers and roads and transit. And effectively, they shifted the burden of that responsibility for paying for infrastructure to municipalities. And so we had to, with their permission and their cooperation, introduce development charges. And I have to say it's a bit unfortunate from my perspective that the same governments who got out of providing all of that infrastructure money are now criticizing municipalities for taking the steps to raise money to pay for that infrastructure. That's the situation we're now in. But I think there is a way forward. I think we can work with other levels of government to get more investment in infrastructure so we don't have to rely as much on development charges. But again, this is not something that we're going to solve on our own. We can't do it alone. We need the help of other levels of government. And frankly, we need your help in convincing them of that. So if you have a chance to talk to your MPs and your MPPs, or the people who are running for those jobs in what's likely to be an election year federally and provincially, please ask them about infrastructure funding. Please ask them to help us with that. Please ask them to invest in municipalities, to give us the tools that we need to build that infrastructure. We're prepared to work with them on development charges if we have more money coming in for infrastructure. And let me tell you why that's so important. It's not easy running a municipal government these days. Ce n'est pas facile de faire fonctionner un gouvernement municipal par les temps qui courent. Nous sommes confrontés à bien des défis, un des plus gros étant notre situation financière. We face a lot of challenges, and one of our biggest is our financial situation. I wish we had the resources and the legislative authorities that the other levels of government have. That would make things a lot easier. So here's a little bit of math for you. In 2024, a typical household in Ottawa paid about $4,300 in property taxes. But a typical family living in that household, a typical family with two income earners, paid about $22,000 in income taxes and another $11,000 in sales taxes. So that's more than $33,000 for the other two levels of government and less than $4,500 for the municipal government. And income taxes and sales taxes go up every year as the economy grows. But our property taxes don't go up unless we raise them manually. So there's a lot of attention every year on our annual tax increases, obviously, but not so much attention on the annual revenue increases for other levels of government that just collect more and more money as the economy grows. And by the way, the federal and provincial governments get to run deficits, as you probably heard, and we don't. The other levels of government can make moves like cutting the HST temporarily or sending every resident a $200 check because they have much higher revenues and they have the ability to run deficits. We don't have that flexibility. So here's the unfortunate reality. If we were to cut development charges drastically, we would just have to increase property taxes. And I don't want to have big property tax increases at a time when residents and business owners like you are already facing significant inflationary pressures. I'm proud of the fact that in Ottawa, we have had the lowest tax increases of any major city in Canada over the past 3 years. Je suis fier que nous ayons été, de toutes les grandes villes du Canada, celle qui a eu la plus faible augmentation d'impôts au cours des 3 dernières années. We've worked hard on our budget. We found more than $200 million in savings and efficiencies, and we're making sure we don't add to the financial burden that our residents and our small business owners are already facing. Other cities have had tax increases of 9 or 10% or even higher in recent years. We've kept our average tax increase to below 3% for the last 3 years. I was in Toronto yesterday. People there were talking about the fact that they have a planned 6.9% tax increase for 2025. I don't know if they were upset or relieved because the year before they had 9.5% as their tax increase. So maybe by comparison that sounds small, but it's still an enormous tax increase. In fact, that brings their total for the past 3 years to about 22%. Here in Ottawa, our 3-year tax increase is 8.9%. And I can commit to you, we will do everything we can to keep tax increases as low as possible, so we're not adding to inflation, so we're not adding to the burden that our residents and small business owners are facing during an affordability crisis. Now, let's talk about what we can do when it comes to streamlining approvals. I would like to see the city do much more to streamline processes, to leverage technology, to embrace bold ideas, and to improve and shorten the timelines for everything we do at City Hall. In fact, we will be in the next week announcing a new task force that will be focused on cutting red tape across the board at City Hall. But in particular, when it comes to the issue of development approvals, we will launch a specialized task force that will explore as many solutions as possible. We need to innovate. We need to test new ideas. Again, it's not one solution. We may need many solutions. And some of the ideas we test may not work, but some of them could, and they might make a big difference. Here are a few that have been suggested that I think are worth looking at. We can look at ways to defer development charges, to ease the financial burden and improve cash flow at the beginning of a project. We can explore whether we can introduce incentives for transit-oriented development. Let's take, for example, the new Riverside South Transit Station. The great thing about that station was it was not built to serve existing demand, but future demand. We're actually ahead in building infrastructure, ahead of the demand for it. There isn't a lot of residential around that area right now, but there will be down the road. So if we incentivize development in that area, just as one example, residents will have a reliable transit system at their doorstep from the day they move in. We can consider issuing long-term leases for land that's owned by the City of Ottawa. We'll work with the federal government and not-for-profit housing providers on speeding up approvals for their surplus land, and the federal government might have a lot of surplus land in the near future, so that land can be developed quickly. We'll look at opportunities for conversions of office buildings into residential. We will look at new models like lease-to-own, vendor take-back mortgages, issuing bonds, and other financial tools that would expedite development on city land. We'll also look at pre-zoning city land so that it can be developed faster. Regarding the approval process, we can explore streamlining the urban design review. And I know how frustrating it can be. I've heard from people in the community about what it's like to be bounced from department to department when you're advancing an approval. So we will look for ways to improve collaboration between departments at the city. We'll look for ways to use technology like AI to see if that can help speed up the process. And there's no point making any effort if you're not going to measure your progress. So we will be introducing a new dashboard that will track the number of permits that we've approved and the time to approval. That dashboard is going to be available for the entire community to see, to ensure that we are making progress on approving more homes and approving them faster. Those are just some of the ideas that we're considering. And here's my message to you this morning. If you have others, please send them our way. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you on this. Nous voulons travailler sur cela avec vous. I intend to bring a motion to City Council later this month to launch this task force and the dashboard and start considering as many ideas as possible. Now there's another role, very important role, for the city to play in our community. And I know it's one you care about as well. We must lead the way in building more affordable housing. That is critical for families in our city, but it's also very important for your industry. Fortunately, we have managed to secure hundreds of millions of dollars in investment from the federal government and the provincial government through the Housing Accelerator Fund and the Building Faster Fund. Very grateful to our partners at the other levels of government for their support of Ottawa in our efforts. As a result, more than 1,200 new affordable units will be ready for occupancy later this year and on through 2027. And I've been fortunate to tour a number of those projects in the past few months. Stéphane Giguère is here from Ottawa Community Housing this morning, along with some of his team members. Stéphane, always great to see you, and thank you for your leadership on this. An example of a project that I toured, Gladstone Village. It's a great Ottawa community housing development in Centertown where 336 units are being built. There's also the redevelopment of Rochester Heights, 273 units of affordable housing that will provide families with safe and modern homes. I know Sarah's here from Habitat for Humanity as well, and they're doing modular homes that are offering ownership opportunities that change lives. So some great work is happening in the community, and we're grateful for it. So my message to you today is this. We're facing a lot of volatility and uncertainty right now. A lot of that is completely outside our control. Mais en 2025, nous allons redoubler nos efforts sur les choses que nous pouvons contrôler. In 2025, we're going to work hard. We're going to work passionately. We're going to work with dedication and energy on the things that we can control. And that includes improving and accelerating the approval process, using city land to build more homes, and leading the way on building more affordable housing. We're also going to continue to campaign for more funding and support from other levels of government. Ottawa has not been getting its fair share. I'm going to continue the Fairness for Ottawa campaign for as long as it takes. We simply can't do it without that support from the other levels of government. Most of all, I want you to remember this. We are going to work with you. Let's not underestimate the value of collaboration, especially in times like this. I know that you want to work together, and I want to emphasize today that we want to work together as well. If we align our interests, if we stay focused on the same goal, which is building more homes and building them faster, we can make a lot of progress together. So I want to say thank you to all of you for what you do. Thank you for building the homes that our residents will call home for generations to come. And I'd especially like to thank Jason from GOBA, the board of directors, the leadership team, the staff at GOBA for all of their hard work. It's been a very successful year. It went from 250 members to 450 members in about 10 seconds. I want to thank today's sponsors, the team at Regional. Ensemble, tout est possible. There's nothing we can't do if we are working together. So I'm excited to partner with you and the other levels of government to build more homes in Ottawa. We all share that goal. And I remind you, at the city, we can't do everything, but we can do our part. And my commitment to you this morning is that we will do our part. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.